What is up, guys? The sky is awake, so I'm awake. And what we're going to be awake doing today is talking about some of the soft skills that I think that people need, especially in the data analytics space, but it could apply to other tech roles. Reason why I want to emphasize soft skills is because I've emphasized that like you can learn technical skills like Excel, Python, SQL, but sometimes interviewers do give you a chance if you do show soft skills, and that can actually get you hired over somebody who has pure technical skills. So, if you are new here, my name is Jennifer, and I'm a full time data analyst and a full time IT baddie. On this channel, we talk about all things tech related, from vlogs to advice, you name it. So, if you like what you hear and see, don't forget to click the subscribe button, and we'll go on to today's lesson. Guys, luckily for us, I do get to sit around a lot of hiring managers and people that are a part of hiring panels. So, I am obviously going to suggest to you some soft skills that could help you get hired, especially for data analytics, because that is my job, but that would apply to other tech roles. So, another one that I do think that is very important is to ask questions. Now, people might think that asking questions may be too invasive or maybe dumb, but it really shows hiring managers initiative, especially if you ask the right questions. If you're asking questions, it shows that you're trying to be a part of the company and the thought process and trying to understand why they made specific decisions. Like, for example, let's say that like you got an interview from a US company that is starting its startup in Cape Town. A simple question you could ask them is, why did they decide to be based in Cape Town as opposed to Johannesburg, or as opposed to Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, which are other African tech hotspots? And a lot of managers do get giddy when you ask them questions because it shows that you're trying to understand their analytical thought process behind certain decisions. And that's a great skill to kind of like infer and also learn, especially in data analytics, because a lot of the decisions you're going to make, especially when you're making reports or trying to find data for specific analysis, is to understand the thought process behind the stakeholder that wants the information and the output that you need to give them. I think problem solving is also a huge skill that is underrated, that a lot of people don't seem to realize is actually assessed in a lot of interviews. So, for instance, a lot of people assume that you need to cram code or get like coding interviews or your technical assessments correct, right? For junior data analytical roles or internships, you might be assessed more often with Excel as opposed to like having assessments use SQL and Python. So a lot of you guys think that like, oh, if I don't get the answers right, then I have bombed the interview. A lot of hiring managers are aware that you might have forgotten which specific formula you need to use or which specific code you need to used in order to answer the question, right? There have been plenty of times where I have actually bombed Python interviews because like I have forgotten, oh, I need to use a dictionary or I need to use a list in certain cases. But if you're able to explain to them their thought process, then you might get hired. Actually, there's a higher chance of you getting hired, guys. And I think one more skill that I would love to emphasize that I mentioned in a previous video is that communication is key, because you're constantly going to be communicating with a lot of people within the IT realm and non-technical stakeholders. So it could be your consultants and managers and all of them who don't really know the IT space, right? So let's say, for example, you go to an interview and you see that they need like you to have SQL, Python, Excel, and all of that. And you know, maybe your SQL skills are weak or your Python skills are weak, right? You would rather communicate that to a hiring manager and be honest and say, this is like where my starting point is. I've been learning Python or SQL from like courses online or like from certifications, but I believe that if you give me the chance, I'll be confident to upskill myself and learn. I've noticed that a lot of hiring managers would rather you communicate and be honest than for you to lie and say, oh, I know everything there is to know about Python, SQL, and Excel, and I am the best fit for the job. And then they give you a technical assessment, and then they realize that, oh no, like you barely even know Python, you're still in the beginner phase and you're not up to scratch, right? I had a lot of hiring managers tell me that they would rather I am honest about where I am in terms of my skill sets than for me to like overstate them. There have been times when I go to interviews and I literally tell hiring managers that My SQL skills are up to code, my Excel skills are up to code, but my Python skills are not necessarily the greatest because I don't use that in my day-to-day job. So I usually try to upskill that by using a lot of courses and certifications that I've mentioned previously on my page, obviously. So when you're honest with that, you're more relatable. And actually, relatability is a good thing, especially in the IT space, because you're gonna communicate with a lot of stakeholders that are non-technical. So if you're able to be open and honest instead of like you pretending that you're perfect, it adds to relatability points and you score points with HR and your hiring manager. I'm just saying. And I think I'm gonna end this video here because I want to keep our classes relatively short. So your homework is to like, share, and subscribe and do all of the nice things. And I shall see you next week for our next lesson. Class dismissed.